Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome in. It is the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football, presented to you by Rivals, and we're ready to kick this one off on a Wednesday. Now, I realize that you're a Michigan fan and that the majority of Michigan fans are shook. They are shook after Saturday's loss, just trying to move ahead. And it's hard to look forward to this upcoming Saturday without looking back and trying to wonder what happened. Now, there's a lot of folks that weren't entertaining the possibility that Michigan could have lost that game. So it's even more difficult sitting here on a Wednesday to try to put together what the name of the truck was that ran over Michigan when Texas came rolling in. When you spend certainly all of last week, maybe the entire summer, saying, "Oh, Texas, yours isn't that good. The offensive line, Washington exposed them," and whatever else that you wanted to do. Sark isn't all that. You know, you get a little surprised when you see your team get smacked upside the head like they did. So I don't know. We're sitting here and trying to figure it out. And that's what we're going to do today. What's next? How do they move forward? Now, the players, you hear the 24-hour rule. Fans aren't like that. The players, it was a tough Saturday night for them, probably a tough weekend for them. But they get back at it. They're practicing, and they're able to put it behind them a lot quicker than you are. That's just the nature of when you're involved and then when you're a fan. That loss, when you're a fan, that is going to sit with you not only this entire week and an entire season, but probably forever. We could sit around talking about surprising losses that were gut punches that have stayed with you forever. And they kind of the last 3 years didn't have much of that. The TCU game was a bit of a shock. It was a shock, not a bit of a shock. It was a shock. But you were able to say, look at the season in its totality, and then look to next year. That lost to Michigan State in the regular season a couple years ago. Yeah, that didn't sit well with folks, but it was only a couple weeks later that Michigan beat Ohio State, one of their greatest victories ever, and then won the Big Ten and went to the college football playoff. This one has you where it could be, you feel like it could be foreshadowing disaster, not only for this season, but, maybe for the long haul. Now, that's part where your mind goes. A lot of people's minds were going to, 6-6, certainly 7-5 on Saturday. And I'm not here to tell anybody that that's taking it too far. I wasn't quite ready, to start saying 6-6 and things like that. Some things like that would be 7-5, but I understand it. I understand it. It's tough to figure out when you're sitting back and you didn't expect it in your wildest dreams. None of that you thought was going to happen. We'll talk about both offense and defense, where this team sits and where they're heading as they get ready to tangle with the Red Wolves of Arkansas State coming up on Saturday. And then I would say more importantly, the USC the following week. But we'll start with the state of the program. And when you're sitting here with the state of the program, I think you got to answer that question that has popped up a lot since Saturday, and that is it fair to criticize Michigan for not going into the portal to get a quarterback? We have talked about this a lot. We have gone over this before spring, during spring, and after spring, and there is a point to it. The point will be louder and be driven home more if Michigan doesn't get anything out of their quarterbacks this year. Through 2 games, it's fair because what we have seen from the quarterbacks, it's not all on the quarterbacks. But everybody points to the quarterback. That's how football works. You understand that. And even if you say, well, it's not on the quarterback, it's still a lot on the quarterback. But because of the timing, I looked at, the big names had dried up. You could say, should Michigan have been maneuvering behind the scenes with pocketfuls of money, contacting agents or coaches and, tampering, whatever, and trying to say, hey, if JJ and Jim leave, we got a stack of money for you and we're ready to give it to you if you want to come here and be the quarterback and compete for the quarterback. Now, that's not Michigan's style. Even in this new age of NIL and everything else, you could say it needs to start being Michigan style. There's going to be an argument for that. I looked at it like, so that wasn't Michigan style. They weren't approaching it like that. And I will take them at their word that they really did like the room. And that room included Jack Tuttle that they had. And then they went through spring and they were looking in the transfer portal, but the names, you look through them and sure enough, they're, you could say anybody could be better. Okay. If you're hearing anybody, was there a quarterback or two that could have come in and competed that could have them in a better position? Probably. But that name wasn't really jumping out. I know it's their job to zero in and find that guy. I think that as this moves on, and it's really going to come down to is Davis Warren, is the game going to slow down for him? Right now, the game, he doesn't look like a Big Ten quarterback to me. He looks like he's been forced into this spot and he's rushed. He said after game one that he really wanted to get his footwork down. Well, the first series, he's backing out of there and throwing it over somebody's head off of his back foot. That's not a good sign to me. He's shuffling his feet. He's running around. How often has he just sat there? The number one thing you have to do as a quarterback is be able to stand in the pocket and deliver the ball down the field, somewhere down the field. And he hasn't done a whole lot of that. The flea flicker was nice. He was able to push the ball down there. But other than that, there's been a lot of running around, stopping, firing the football. That stuff is not going to work. It's not going to work. And yeah, he could be helped out by a running game and an offensive line and down and distance and a defense. All of that is true. And that's just added to him. I think everything's speeding up for him. But it's going to be a big deal. How much of, you want to call it blame? We'll call it blame. Is going to be put at the feet of the coaches, Sherrone Moore or Kirk Campbell, the guys that the two that are going to be the most important when you talk about why they didn't go after a quarterback in the portal. If Davis Warren, if the game never settles down for him, that the question of what were they doing stays there. And then you get to Orji and the whole situation. They went into game week not naming a quarterback. As you know, the competition was too tight. And even during game week, instead of going with the snaps, giving snaps in practice to the starter, they split them because they were still competing. And that took away from not only the opener and in robbing whoever was going to be the starter, Warren, of a full complement of snaps with the number one. It also robbed him of having all those snaps for the locomotive that was coming in Texas the week before. It was never a good idea. But then you just think, why they were so close that these guys, they couldn't make a decision. We can't call it. So we got to spill it into game week. It was very unusual for guys that have never been starters, first-time starters. But now through two games, you wonder about Orji. Orji, can he throw a pass actually down the field? And for the first two games, when we watch, I know he made the nice little pass to Donovan Warren on the first series of that first game, and it was like, ooh, nice. But since then, We've seen him throw it into the ground, and then we haven't seen him throw it. It makes you feel like they don't think that Alex Orji can throw the ball down the field. And if he can't throw the ball down the field, then how is he really neck and neck with Davis Warren to begin with? So then it gets back to if we see that, and now that's what it looks like, why in the world would they have not tried anybody else? And I know anybody else, there had to be somebody out there. So it's a legitimate question, even though I just gave you all the reasons. And all summer long, the quarterback, the good ones, it dried up. And then in the spring, they thought, but they didn't think that Tuttle was coming back from injury and he missed the spring. And they had to think that he was going to come back and be available in fall camp. And sure enough, there were some reports that he was throwing in the summer phase. And so he had the injury that Brock Purdy for the 49ers. And somewhere along in the summer phase, he got hurt again. And then he was in fall camp. And I don't know, did he even practice one time in fall camp? So the guy, when they look to the spring portal, they're like, hey, we got Tuttle. Our room we like. We don't want to break up the room, bringing in somebody that we really don't think is he really going to be that better? But I don't know. What was their evaluation of Orji? What is their evaluation of Orji? He was that close to Warren, and yet they won't let him throw a pass. And then Warren has to play a lot better, or these guys are going to look worse and worse as it goes. That's how it works. And it's fair at this point to criticize them for not going into the portal. And it's going to come down to if these guys, how they turn it around, how much better they look. And then again, they can get helped out by the line and the receivers and the defense and the coaches and everything. They can get helped out by everything. And so, but as it works in football, it's always coming back to the quarterback and the head coach. So that's where we sit right now. All right, so that's number one. I'm going to let you think about that a second, and I want to read some of the feedback, and then we will go to the offense and the defense. This is not a day where I'm trying to, sledgehammer Michigan, or I'm trying to smash, not in a good way smash, not in a Sharon Moore fun way smash, but, smash everything that comes up. It felt like that on Saturday. Everything that, I don't know, as you say, it wasn't a perfect storm. Everything didn't go wrong, but it did feel like that. They couldn't stop Texas defense. The offense, after their first series, they had to settle for that field goal. I didn't feel good about that. Then they threw a pick, and then they had a fumble, and then the game was over. And the defense never had to stop, unless you want to count that first series where they missed a field goal. They didn't stop anybody. I would have bet everything I had that they would have at least, had a stop or two in the first half. No stops, not being able to do anything on offense, turning it over. Terrible combination. That's how it ends up looking like it looked on Saturday, which was a disaster, as everybody knows. Okay, take a breath out there. And why not? You want some people that are level-headed, looking at the Michigan football program and taking stock in where they're going? Maybe wait a couple weeks, but looking at how things are going, being able to step back and look at it objectively. It's the Maize and Blue review, and I invite you to join on in by going to michigan.rivals.com. It's a lot of fun. You're able to discuss Michigan topics with Michigan fans in a very professional manner. And then if you want to get a little bit, upstream and get a little bit, get a little wild, there's time for that. It's Maize and Blue review after dark. You get in there and you get a little crazy, especially after some losses. It can happen, but we'd love to see you over there on the Maize and Blue Review. And while I'm telling you about that, and speaking of Smash, here's Smash from Ferris. He is saying that we are less than 100 away from getting to 5,000 subscribers. And Smash is right. We are going to have that party. Woo! Hit that subscriber button. Get us that 100 subscribers so we can meet up. If you are close to Ann Arbor, we'll want to see you come on down there to the party, the pod party. So let's do it. Okay. Whew. Let's see what the people are saying. Let's first go to Scott, who asks how the defending national champion finds itself without a decent quarterback and no elite wide receivers. Well, we have just gone through the quarterback situation. How do they end up with no elite wide receivers? Well, Michigan over the last 3 years has picked an identity, and that is smash. That is run the ball and then run it more and then throw it a little bit. So elite wide receivers, they want money and they want the ball. So to me, that's not going to be a surprise. Although I still think that Samaj Morgan can be an elite wide receiver. If you ask me why Marion Walker, who they went out and got in the transfer portal, can't get out on the field, I don't know. He must be hurt or something like that. I say something like that, or, it's not performing. How about that? John. Let's see. Orgy. Let's see. Orgy. I need to see with my own eyes. If they suck, they suck, but at least I will know. Yeah, this is the part that this is, they've made their bed a little bit with this. They go into the season. Hey, we're juggling quarterbacks. We can't really pick one, so we've gone into the season. That opens you up. That's a field day. There's a lot of reasons that people were like, as a first-time head coach, settle on a quarterback heading into game week, and then stick with them and see how it goes. Because if not, people are coming at you from every which way, asking questions all the time. And now it's legitimate. If Orchard was that close, shouldn't he get a series or two to actually see? Can we see him throw a couple consecutive passes to see if he burns one into the ground again, or if there's going to be maybe he could provide a spark. The team rallies around him. We've seen stuff like that before. That's the intrigue of heading into Saturday, how they deal the quarterbacks out. Now that Tuttle's back, it adds another layer of intrigue because Tuttle, I think you take Davis Warren, who we know has started the first two games, but in this before the spring, a lot of the portal, the reason they didn't go is they thought, hey, we got Jack Tuttle. He's I don't know if they thought he was their ace in the hole, but his addition to the room and the experience they had, they liked him. He had backed up JJ. They like what he brought to the table. He's just never been able to practice and compete for the job. But now he's back and ready to go. Are they ready to get him back up on the horse now? I know. So we're talking 3 quarterbacks and the first, no, I don't know. Say no, I don't know. I don't like playing 2, so now am I talking about playing 3? Woo! I don't know, but I agree with the orgy part now. It was so close, and I've seen that the game, what it's done with Warren. I'd like to see what it looks like with Orgy, but then you could also make the case, the same thing that I was making in game 1. How about whoever you declared starter, you go with him and give him the best opportunity to perform? And that is giving him the starter reps, going in where, the quarterback position. And I know we've had former players and coaches I know by watching the position, when you see a quarterback and it's his team, and why do they almost every offensive coordinator that I've ever watched with a quarterback, why do they like throw a wide receiver screen to start them out? Then you always hear the color analyst like, yep, I just want to get Mr. Quarterback in a rhythm here. A nice, easy throw. They want to get that timing down. They want to get his confidence going. They always say that. And I would rather not have a first-time starter looking over his shoulder like Davis Warren. You're not giving him the opportunity. You didn't do that by heading into game week, not deciding, having the competition go through. It wasn't good for the opener. It wasn't good for the confidence. Obviously, it wasn't good for Texas. So now we sit here again, and I'm doing the same thing. Well, maybe give Orji a series. That's not going to be good for this week in preparation. If you're out there, go with the best quarterback and stick with him. The way that you wouldn't do it is if you looked at the next few games and you thought, this is a cakewalk. This is East Carolina, UNLV, and BG, and then starting against the last 2 years, people are like, well, Jim did it. Jim had a super easy schedule. And he did some things. Yeah, but in 21, he had JJ and he was spotting him in there. True enough. If Alex Orji was a 5-star quarterback, they're giving Orji the treatment of him being some 5-star quarterback, like some super. Well, I got to give him a couple, mix him in a little bit because we think that he just could be one of the better quarterbacks in the country. Is that what they're thinking? The messages and messaging to me is all over the place with this. Everywhere I turn and look at it and try to examine it and try playing it out through my mind, it drives me crazy. Is that I don't think that they are handling it well. So, yeah, John, let's roll the dice and split up the snaps and give Orji a series now. And if Orji comes out there and has some success and leads them down on the field, maybe he'll start against USC. Is that what we're thinking? And Warren's got some happy feet or, throws another pick. But the rest of it, are we trying it out? Are we, that's going to happen. If it was up to me, I'd scrap Orji. Unless Warren, during practice, unless he's falling to, can't get his feet set, some of the stuff that we saw this last game. That's how I look at it. M Go Blue 1 2 3 4. Say that's not that original, but it's his handle. He's gone and talking about the Lions. I never thought in my life that I would get to a point that I would be talking about Michigan football and a big Michigan football fan would say, hey, don't you wish it could be like the Lions and it'd be a thing of beauty? It's pretty wild. Good for the Lions. Has Link been replaced in the starting lineup? No, I think that Link is out there at right tackle. That's the thing with this offense. There's a big question mark at quarterback. There is a big question mark at right tackle. I'd put the question mark at center too. A lot of this was like, hey, it's good for competition. This means that they're deep. Or it meant that they didn't have a really good option at 2 spots on the offensive line and at quarterback. And then I think watching Jim Harbaugh over the last 2 years, he had opportunities with the guys on the roster and he went with Ola Timmy. Then he had all of these guys on the roster and he said, I'll bring Drake Nugent. Then he had all of these tackles out there and he's like, I'm not only going to bring one I'm bringing a couple tackles into the transfer portal. And so the idea that, okay, well now it's at these guys' time. that that they're going to step up. They've waited, and now you wonder. And Link, he's a freshman. He's out there, and he doesn't look like he's ready. It's a question mark. There's the other part of it. If we're looking for what are the two biggest question marks, they were the biggest question marks heading into the season: quarterback and offensive line. I did think that with the offensive line, because it was their identity and they recruit a certain way, and the coach is an offensive lineman, that they were going to be able to find five. I gave them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt on that. I did the same thing with the quarterbacks. These guys watch them. These guys put them through the paces. They understand about what they're looking at here and deciding not to get in that portal when thinking about the future. You always have to be thinking about the future. But they decided, no, we're not going to contacting any kids. And trying to say, look, if JJ leaves, we need a QB and we got money. Not their style. And then in the spring, they really thought that these guys, that this quarterback room, now they lost Tuttle to an injury. That sucks. Can't really predict those, but they thought that the room with what was out there was good enough. So we're going to still see if that plays out. And they'll have to excuse anyone is going to have to excuse people that have watched this team for the first two games wondering about the quarterbacks and the quarterback room. It's a legit and it's a fair question. Even if they have the answer, even if their answer is there was nobody there and we felt good about the room. Well, should you have felt good about the room? Should you have? Let's take a few more here before we go to the offense and defense. Jeff is talking about 0 turnovers. We might just lose by 10 or less. He is moving on. USC has a bye week, so there's that. However, 3 quarterbacks need a whole series: Tuttle, Warren, and Orji. I've already been over that. I am against these quarterbacks getting any kind of rotation. You're taking away from their snaps for USC. Pick one and go through it. Nothing against you, Jeff. They're probably going to follow your plan, and people want to see it. I don't. I don't know about the 0 turnovers because the defense didn't stop anything. So sure enough, they went out there. They had their first drive, 3 and out. They said, hey, we're going to smash it. Didn't go anywhere. Texas goes right down the field. Zoom. Score a touchdown. Michigan gets somebody lucky. Penalty. Hey, they hold them. Maybe there would have been a sack there, whatever. And they miss a field goal. Woo! They missed a field goal. Dodge a bullet. Everybody's excited. Then they couldn't stop them. That had nothing to do with the turnovers. Michigan couldn't get off the field. They couldn't stop them at all. They couldn't tackle. They couldn't get Ewers. Quinn Ewers looked like John Elway. Now, the third turnover, they had 2 turnovers. Certainly they were costly. Throwing an interception when you got a guy sitting right there and throwing it into triple coverage, bad choice. Colston Loveland fumbling the ball, certainly. Those 2 things killed him. But I don't want to hear about it because if the defense would have done something, then maybe you would have a little bit more of a point there, Jeff. No offense, no defense. So, okay, maybe if they would have played defense and didn't have any turnovers, it could have been a closer game. More Lions talk. David Montgomery looked like Haskins. McCord has looked very good for Syracuse. Yeah, well, he was the one. Leaving Ohio State, Michigan behind the scenes before he elected or before he was in the transfer portal, the timing and everything else. He committed to go to Syracuse before JJ left, but could Michigan have been in his agent or high school coach's ear and said, hey, just in case, JJ, there's a chance I know everyone around here and all Michigan fans are like, JJ's not ready. JJ's coming back. JJ was gone. But, and Jim was still there. So I don't know, was Syracuse, even though this might not have been that appealing, should Michigan have been like, hey, whatever it would have cost? I don't know. Did they not do it because he was a Buckeye, or I don't know. John says the whole team looked confused, too much talent to look like they did, doesn't understand what to do. This leads me to think it's coaching. Yeah, well, let's go to it. The offense. How much of that is coaching? Their idea was our identity, Sherrone Moore, is smash, and they got to be able to run the ball. But their quarterback and down and distance and get some kind of rhythm. Well, as important to me in that game on Saturday of Warren throwing the ball, turning it over, and Loveland dropping the ball and had a turnover, Michigan's second series, they had the flea flicker and they got down where it was a 3rd and 3. And you're in a rhythm. The whole team's going out there, and they brought Orji in. And this is the gamble. When things don't work and you're doing something out of character, and what people that have watched football for their entire life said, hey, this is a bad idea because a lot of things can go wrong. And when it does go wrong, everybody's going to point the finger at you. That's what Michigan did. They came in and they ran the most predictable play. Like, Orji is really good. And, you mentioned Haskins. Well, a lot of times when Michigan was in 4th and 1, I just giving it to Haskins. You better have the horses up front if you want to be really predictable and say, you know what? We're Michigan. We're going to just run the ball at you. You know it's coming. Here you are. We're even putting a fullback. We're telling you that we're running the ball right up the middle. Just stop us. Oh, and they stopped them cold. Would they have gone for it if it was 4th and 1? Probably. But they didn't get it. And that blew up on them. You needed a touchdown there. You needed to stem the tide. You were going to need some points. You need to get into the 20s. Now, as it happened, that the defense was never stopping them, but kicking the field goal there, going with the Orji package right into the line was as big of a deal in this game as the interception or the fumble in the ensuing series. And that is on the coach. That's on Campbell, and ultimately it's on Sherrone Moore. They're the one that cooked up this cake and put it out there like, oh, we're going into game week with both of these guys. What could go wrong? Well, we're seeing it. What could go wrong? Predictably, it could go wrong. Now you got the fans calling for 3 guys coming up on Saturday. Woo, let's go. 3 different quarterbacks they want to see. The offense, are they going to be able to get something going with an offensive line that has a question mark at right tackle and center? I don't know the answer to that. That's why when I look to Saturday, I want to see an offensive line come off the ball. I don't want to see a rotation at center or right tackle. I want to see some big runs. I want to see some explosive plays. And I want to see a quarterback play a sound game. One quarterback play a sound game where he has his feet set and he can deliver the ball, and Michigan's offense could put him into a good down and distance. And they want to get to the second half and they're up by a few scores. They want to play around with Orji or Tuttle or Davis or Denegal. That's when you get cute and you start playing your backups. That's what I want to see from the offense, because this offense right now has gone into the season. Everyone's looking over their shoulder. You're rotating positions, including the quarterback and the center and your right tackle. None of that makes sense. Play a game soundly with your starters, and let's see how that goes, because you got USC coming in next week. And if you lose that one, this whole doomsday scenario or Chicken Little scenario that people have been feeling since Saturday, well, they're going to be right. So that's what I would like to see from the offense. And from the defense, the defense needs to be in position and make some tackles. That's what I would like to see on Saturday. But really, it's about the USC game for that defense. Wink Martindale got an F against Texas. Wink Martindale needs to get a passing grade a week from Saturday, or everybody's going to look at Wink Martindale and say, oh, what a bad hire. That's how quickly it can happen when your defense plays like it did this past Saturday. Maybe these guys can do whatever, bow up or, whatever, and come out and put their best foot forward. You start stacking some wins and you feel better about yourself. And, what can happen if they can play some sound football Saturday and then they bring it to the table against USC. A lot of this is just be like, okay, Texas, everything that could have gone wrong seemed like it did. And now they've come back together. And now they're moving forward. They're into the conference. They get a W against USC. And you can start seeing some wins. Can they, retain the little brown jug? They should be able to. Can they go to Washington in their first road trip there with a walk-on quarterback? And can he deliver the football in Seattle? That's about as far as I'm looking. You start talking about, hey, Illinois, Michigan State, and Oregon. Those are, I'm looking at these next two. You can't feel much. You feel, I say much better. You can feel better, a little bit better when you watch them if they are able to go through a week against Arkansas State where they look good. Well, then, okay, that's fine. If you look bad against Arkansas State, I can't do anything for you. But if you look good, at least it sets you up then for USC, and then you can start feeling like, okay, things have settled down. We're back. Because it doesn't feel like that right now. It doesn't feel like they're back. It feels like they've got big decisions to make, and they haven't made the correct ones so far. Can they settle down and make some good decisions and play some nice football and set themselves up for this USC game where at least they can get back on track? Because this thing, you got into it, and right off the bat, it was like, okay, this is you're not running this thing correctly. And now it's come back, and there's a lot of question marks, as you know. So that's about where I'm at with it. It's where I'm at with the offense. It's where I'm at with the defense. It's where I'm at with the coaching. Put together a good week. Stick with one quarterback. Stick with an offensive line. If you get up by a few scores and then you want to start doing, okay. But I understand, like, everybody's got an idea, like, okay, let's have Warren in the first series and then get Orgy a series or two right in a row. Okay. I'm not doing that. And if they do that, I'm not going to feel good about, going in to see Michigan play USC with that kind of merry-go-round at the quarterback position. Or if they're doing the same thing, I didn't like it in the opener. And look, the coaches, they got to, give you a bunch of coach speak. You got Jod East getting pushed on a 3rd and 1, or was it a 4th and 1? 5 feet into the backfield, he's out the next play, and then they're like, no, he wasn't taken out. It was just a rotation. Nobody believes that. Nobody believed that. Go with your best offensive line and let them work together. And if it's that bad out at right tackle, then it's that bad. And if you're going to pull somebody, give the next guy a chance. Not some kind of rotational thing. the two positions that you don't play around with when it comes to rotating because it infects the entire team is offensive line and quarterback. And what has Michigan done so far? They have rotated quarterbacks in different spots, and they've rotated offensive linemen. Not just one, but two. Or maybe they didn't rotate the right tackle. It just felt like they rotated right tackle because right tackle last game didn't play so hot. So it's center, and the first game they rotated. Not a good idea. That's if you want to say, hey, get your facts straight. I'm guilty. I can be guilty of saying things that might not be correct. All right, let's finish it up with some feedback here from the people. And then I'll bring some positivity towards the end. Here's AZ. Wishes Michigan would have gone to the portal. Understandable. Old Johnny O. The run to the sideline ain't going to cut it. No, it's not. Betting on Tuttle is wild. We should have just thrown a bag at Dante Moore. He probably would have taken it, given he's from Detroit. Well, I mean, that's saying he's from Detroit. He would have taken it. He was already getting a bag. Michigan was interested in getting Dante Moore, but I know that Michigan, this is from Michigan's side, Michigan knew that they had to go over $1.5 million for Dante Moore. They knew that. That's what Oregon, plus Oregon was sweetening it up with some jobs for the family. And I don't know how Michigan was putting that into an equation, but I know that Harbaugh and company knew that they had to go $1.5 million at least for Dante Moore. And then it ended up where it was even more than that because he ended up going to UCLA. Who knows how much they threw, whatever it was. Maybe they just went 1.75, maybe they went 2, whatever it was. But Michigan went into back then, which was 2 years ago, they tiptoed into they did a good job, but the part about upfront money and signing bonuses, that was kind of their last part where they're like, oh, look, Jaden Davis came in, signed an NIL deal, and you could say, hey, Will Johnson had an NIL deal on signing day. He was there. I mean, he had something. So they have had some things in place, but I just think it was the number was too big for Dante Moore. And the number was too big for Underwood. That part. And, LSU, he just saw what Jaden Daniels did and winning the Heisman and throwing the ball. And then they're like, plus we're going to give you $5 million. So I don't know. They're like, it comes down to big time quarterbacks now, and the ones that are right in your backyard. Should they have, broken out and it's easy for me to say 5, 6, 7 million for Moore and or Underwood. Yeah, I'd have liked to have seen that. Like Ward Manuel recently pointed out in an interview that the Michigan fans aren't running towards the NIL and just, putting in cash like a lot of the other teams. And to me, that should be expected. For 25 years, Michigan has said, the whole reason that we're not winning it all the time is because all of these cheating schools are paying all of this money to players. And then Michigan's like, now we want you to pay players. Everybody's like, wait a second, that's what? It's taking a little time to adjust that way. And it's not all on Ward. That's on the Michigan culture, which we all talk about, which is so great. And what got him where it was for the last 3 years. So, I was staying with them the last 3 years. There's a lot of reasons to say for everything that came around, they had an answer for, and they won. So they look like, they really had a handle on things and were doing it well. But now you can start looking and saying, how will they adjust? Are they ready? They've got a couple QBs in the committed. So maybe when it comes down to quarterbacks, they have decided that they've got to push a little bit with money. I don't know. Again, I've sat here in the off season talking about money and what they have to do and everything. James says if we lose 2 or 3 more in the next 5, let Davis ball out. Yeah, James. Let's see what happens. After USC. But yeah, Jaden Davis, possibility of him coming in, and if everything goes poorly, hopefully we're not sitting here in 2-3 weeks talking about let's get Jaden Davis in there. First, we got Davis Warren we're talking about, now Orji, and, are they going to get Tuttle some work because now he's back and throwing? Now we've got 4. We just need somebody to say, what about Denigal? Can we get him in the mix? Hadley. It's good to see Hadley. When things are going well, Hadley was here, and, now we've had a game like this, and Hadley joins us. And he's asking a question. Let's see what Hadley says. Is it true that sometime after Sharon was hired that Dante Moore re-entered the portal? And if so, why didn't Michigan get him? Was it because of NIL and Michigan's stubbornness of not doing pay for play? I don't call it stubbornness. Michigan was having success. They had a philosophy and it was working. NIL worked for Michigan in retaining players last year to win a national championship. Pay to play, we're talking about signing bonuses and matching a free agent. Yeah. Moore went back to Oregon. And I don't know how much he got to go to UCLA, and I don't know how much he got to Oregon, but Michigan was going to have to pony up big money if they were going to get him. And it was 1.5 originally. UCLA went higher than that. What did Oregon have to do to come back? I don't know. Michigan was, they say, stubborn. They weren't playing that game. The big time money up front to quarterbacks. And looking at this recruiting cycle, it looks like they haven't done that. They're not playing that game still. And the very top players, the whatever you look, top 100, certainly the top 50 players in a consensus or however you look at it, those guys are getting big time money up front. Michigan's not getting any of them. They're getting a next cut, a next tier. And, Marshall was the one that you're like, hey, hey, look, they got Marshall. Maybe they must have taken care of him. Now he bolted. Where'd he go? Auburn. So I don't know. There was always going to be a reaction to recruiting when Michigan lost. And here it is. My prediction, and it's one that I think everyone will agree with. If Michigan loses a few more ball games, the drumbeat to they've got to start paying players is going to just get louder and louder. The development angle, and we're just recruiting Michigan kids, a certain profile, isn't going to fly to the Michigan fans. No, that's it. That's going to be just get louder and louder. Yeah, I don't know. That's the way it looks right now, Johnny. Run Orji, nothing to lose. Put Warren in or Tuttle on the 3rd and longs. I'm not doing all that. That's not, if they might do that, I hope that they don't do that. Nobody's saying anything good about Davis Warren. Here is Scott, who's also talking about CJ Carr. They could have thought about. Yeah, there's 3 that slipped through their fingers. What can I say? What I did say at the time is that things were working really well for Michigan, and it was hard to criticize them in their approach, and certainly their approach. And what happened with CJ Carr, all of those, it's hard to like lump all three of Carr, Underwood, and Moore. The part that you do lump those in together is that these guys were all a stone's throw from Michigan Stadium. So you would have thought that they should have been able to get in on one. And yeah, Carr, considering his parents and his grandfather, you would have thought that, yeah, Moore and, Underwood, the Michigan ties with the family and how close those guys were. Yeah, you'd have also thought that one of those guys that they would have been able to get, but no. So yeah, strike one, strike two, strike three on those guys. But Michigan had success. But look at where they're sitting right now. Yeah. Okay. JSA, coaching is everything. And Michigan dropped the ball on that. Okay. Let's get a few more. More better have staff analysts scouting the lower tier Power 5 and Group of 5 for an offensive coordinator quarterback combos to bring them in this offseason, which will be in December. I think that's a fair request or a fair point. Tuttle has never produced. I don't have an argument for that. Jay says he doesn't think I don't think Campbell knows how to build around Orji. Yeah, that is one of the things, and I'll go back to, what was it, probably last week at this time I was watching Big Ten Network, and they had Urban Meyer, who was up on the board, and he was like, "Oh yeah, Michigan, they're running RPO. Here's the tough part: you got to prepare for Orji and for Warren, and it's just two completely different skill sets. You have gotten, and he's going through everything that Orji is doing and how tough it is, and then here's what they have to do to Warren." But the flip side of that is when you're a staff and you're a team and you're an offensive line, okay, now if you are really going to be an Orji-led team, everything is it's different. The way you're blocking, the way you're approaching the game, everything is different than if you have a pocket passer in Warren. Now you're trying to mix the two, ask a bunch of people that have never played before, don't have that much experience, to just ship from series to series, or just, I don't know. Okay, here he comes. Here comes Orji. It was never a good idea. P. Maximus. Do you think the uncertainty with Link Jadis is causing El Hadi and Preeb confusion and of them being a disappointment? Well, I don't know. Like the offensive line, we've all been told a million times, they all feed off of one another, and they all have to, if you've got, one link, they're like the Rockettes. They got to be out there, and everybody's got to be in motion, and it's all got to be working together. And that's why heading into this season, the development of the offensive line and quarterback was always going to take time. That's if you dedicate all the first string snaps to the center or the offensive line and a quarterback. Michigan has not done that. So maybe, and that's one of the drawbacks that I was looking at. And we know what Moore has said and what others have said about, how, why it doesn't matter, or I don't know, whatever the choices were. Scar rolls a different way, and, hey, this is fine. Let's just put them all in there. But for 100 years, I've been told that the offensive line, they all need to work and develop and work in unison together with your best five. Your best five's not necessarily the most talented ones. It's the ones that can work together. It's like with a basketball team. Sometimes you get five together. These guys just play off of one another, and they work in unison. That's what it comes down to with the offensive line. And a first-time starting quarterback, that's also important. You're asking an offensive line and an offense to have a drop back first time uh, quarterback in there. And then, okay, we're going to shift gears and we're going to totally go to a running quarterback. And could that be part of the issue? Well, it was part of the issue with that second drive on Saturday. We never know what Davis Warren would have been able to do on third down. Because the defense was just sitting there and they're like, hey, RJ, he's going to run. Hey, he ran it right up the middle. We all gave them a pass, Dennis, because we're the champs. Well, you're right. And there's part of that. I tended myself, I just wanted to just enjoy the offseason, enjoy Michigan's championship. I didn't want to say, well, should we start wondering what's going on here? Like with all of this, even making the predictions for the year, did you really want to say, oh, man, quarterback and offensive line, this team's probably not going to win as many games, probably not making a college football playoff. It's like, I didn't want to say it. And I didn't want to ruin it. You didn't want to ruin anybody's off season until you had to. It's one of those things. I broke my wife's this nice cup that she had, and I knew she was going to be sad about it. It was very sentimental. And eventually I knew I was going to have to tell her, but did I tell her right away? No, I waited. She was all happy and everything. I thought, oh, boy, that's probably not a really good idea, just getting out there and telling her. And so I waited. And then I finally did tell her. I broke it. All right, now that is going overboard. I'm not reading that one. Come on now, Johnny. Travis is playing a what if. What if JJ and Blake had stayed on for one more year, but they didn't and went pro for the big paycheck? Yeah, well, what if I had a Lamborghini sitting outside? I'd get to the stadium a lot faster. Yeah, that was never happening. So, but yeah, you can play the what ifs. I'll play your what if, Travis. What if Harbaugh and JJ and Blake decided they were all coming back? Well, the running game and JJ, so what I got to play the what if when JJ doesn't get hurt. Would Jim, if he wouldn't have been trying to work Ward on one side and the Chargers on the other side, would he have been thinking, okay, let's make sure that we're getting somebody out of the portal there, or would they be in that same situation? All those things are hard. If you're just a gigantic Harbaugh fan, and who's not, you'd have thought, oh, Harbaugh would have been doing things differently. It feels like if it was Harbaugh, things would be working. If he would have been, rotating them around or anything else. Kind of feel like Harbaugh would have brought in a more offensive lineman and maybe a quarterback, but they had the injury. I don't know. None of us know. But do I think Michigan would have beat Texas if Harbaugh and everyone, including JJ and Blake Corum, came back? Not if the defense played like it did. JJ wasn't playing defense. They weren't going to put Corum out there at linebacker. So no, I think they would have lost. That's the frustrating part about this past Saturday's loss. You knew Michigan was going to eventually lose, and you may have thought that they were going to lose to Texas. But did you think that Texas was going to come in and just run them over like they did on defense? No, nobody was thinking that. You're thinking, hey, the offense might struggle to score, and you could lose something like 27-17. But not Texas could have scored 50 in that game if they wanted to. That's the thing. The game was over very quickly. You could see one team had it and the other team didn't. Real fast. Everything was working for Texas and nothing was working for Michigan. Problem is, we were sold a reload head coach and got a rebuild. Rebuild on they were they reloading on offense? They were never reloading on offense. And the defense, if there was no other coach out there to get, Kalen DeBoer signed with Alabama. Now you could say, oh, Ward should have been maneuvering, saying, if Harbaugh goes, here's $10 million. Okay. DeBoer wasn't coming. The Washington coach, who else? You wanted the guy from Missouri. All the guys that you liked on defense would have right now, and you could say whatever, but they would have all been gone. So what you were sold on was continuity. A Harbaugh guy, and you had a bunch of stars on defense, and they did stay around. But you were sold on continuity, and what you got is a team that on one side of the ball you expected to struggle, but they're struggling on both sides of the ball. That's a little bit longer way to put it than you, Keegan. Okay, Davis, Hart, Smith, if they all stay, will be in great shape at quarterback. Yeah, that's a part of the brighter days ahead. Now, come on. Billy from Jonesboro jumping in. MD is saying it's a shame that Warren has been totally screwed over by the horrid play calling and decision making. There's some truth to it. Jay Marion, Tebow, and Terrell Pryor couldn't throw, but they won. Milroe is not the best passer either, but he wins. Give Orgy a shot. He can't do worse. Well, look, I thought it was going to be Orgy. I thought that on that Monday that they were going to come out there and Sharon Moore was going to say Alex Orgy's our quarterback. And then I don't know where we would be right now, but we wouldn't have seen Davis Warren. They decided to go the other way and then sprinkle Orgy in. Warren was making the plays in practice, but he hasn't made them. So are they ready to make that big shift? Jay, are you ready to make that big shift? Orgy's nowhere near the caliber of those other QBs. MD wants to know the breakdown of why Warren is bad. Is he too short, weak arm, inaccurate? He's none of those things. We have horrible coaching and play calling. Well, he's not. He was up against it in Texas on that big third down. It's going to break your rhythm to have somebody else come in. He did throw the pick into triple coverage. He's throwing off his back feet. His footwork's not right. So I'm not saying that he's bad. I'm saying that the game looks fast for him. And when you're playing against Texas, all of a sudden you're playing a top 5 team, stuff that you can do in practice and make some of these throws, throw it off your back foot, just swinging it over there, popping one into triple coverage. Those are none of that is going well. There's a lot of things that go on with quarterback. I would like to see on Saturday, if it is Warren, let's just see him make throws where he's set and he can deliver the football, where he's not sidearming it, throwing off the back of his feet, running all around. Let's just see a quarterback that can run an offense and look like he's got some fundamentals behind him. Didn't look like that against Texas. There were a lot of chicken with his head cut off type stuff. That kind of thing is the way it looked to me. All right. That's I think it's mostly the same folks, kind of the same thing. Vaughn wants to know who's evaluating the quarterback position. That's Kirk Campbell and Sharon Moore. That's who's evaluating the quarterback position, with some help from some other guys that are on the offensive and the analysts. But those are the two: your offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, and head coach. Those are the two biggies. That's the question. That's the answer to the question. That's it. All right. It's a lot of the same things here. Now that we're going back and forth, Warren, Orgy, Tuttle, Moore, this kind of thing. They have made it clear that they weren't paying players. Now they say it's the fans. I don't know. Let's see Smash, what he's saying. He's on the bandwagon. Beat USC and let's see what happens. You know, I could have just come out on the pod and just said that. Stay with him. Let's just wait until what happens against USC. Not a bad idea to say or think that way. Ferris, I understand where you're coming from. I'm not going to putting together a list of coaches. With all the hype, where's Cabana, Walker, Klein, being that Colston Loveland? Well, Klein's been out there a little bit. I haven't seen Walker, and I haven't seen Cabana, so I don't know. Klein's been out there a little bit, but I don't think the other two have played. Yeah, the running back position. You can say whatever you want about Donovan Edwards, Khalil Mullings, and Loveland. Even though he dropped the third down in the opener and then fumbled the one, you know, he's their best player on offense. The tight end position and the running backs. I mean, those are the two position groups that are okay. I mean, we could talk about Edwards and if he's not letting the blocks develop, or are they putting him in the right position? A lot of people want to see him just throw him the ball. I've always said this with Donovan Edwards. You can give him 5 carries and he'll come up with 3 yards. On the 6th carry, he's taking it 80 yards. And on the 7th carry, he's taking it 50 yards. But then the next 5, you're going to have 5 yards. That's kind of how it goes with him. That's what I've seen from him in his career. So you got to just keep. It's hard, and when you're losing, it's tough. You know, giving it to him while he goes down again, and then everybody wants to demote him, or saying he's overrated or these things. No, it's the kind of player he is. I don't. Barry Sanders. I just say that. And he's like, he's not Barry Sanders. I know he's not Barry Sanders. And there's one Barry Sanders. Barry was like that a little bit. Again, he's not Barry Sanders, but he's like that. Okay. Smash the like button. We'd love to see you over on the Maize and Blue Review. There's a posting board there of The Den. And all day long, all day, all night, people are sharing ideas on what Michigan can do, should do, what they will do. And it's a lot of fun. And that gets me to where I am at right here. Football is fun. It's not fun losing. It's been a while since you'd been in the position, and you're still mad, frustrated, still stings, all of those things. Get through this week, and then let's see what happens against USC. Let's not fully, you might have watched this and said, you sound like you're panicking. I'm not going to panic until next week against USC. Then I'll be in full panic mode. Hopefully I'm not going to be in full panic mode. Get a couple W's under their belt, and they look forward, and things look different. And you say, okay, let's see what they can do with this Big Ten. let's see if they can now start, knocking off some opponents and see if they can stay in this thing. But we don't have to. You can say, well, USC's a long way. It's not that long. It's a week from Saturday. We'll find out whether this thing is, reversible or not. We'll have a couple clues this Saturday as well. If they have some struggle, if it's a struggle bus on Saturday, maybe we can start the panic a little bit early. You say we'll lay all of the fireworks out there and the fuses, saying, okay, we'll start. We're not gonna light the fuse on the panic, or if it's a panic button, let me just make the announcement. We will take the panic button if they don't play well against Arkansas State. We will put it right in front of us, and we will put our hand over it. And we'll say we're probably going to be smashing this panic button after the USC game, considering how they looked against Arkansas State. But we're not actually going to push it until after the USC game. Then we might be pushed. Then we might be smashing it like that. Thanks so much for watching. And it's a pleasure being able to be here and talk Michigan football with you. Hope everybody has a great day. And we'll see you over on the Den on the Maize and Blue Review. Rivals.com. Till then.